think you know history's greatest knights. These warriors didn't just fight, they shaped nations, defied kings, and became legends. In this video, we'll uncover 8 of the toughest medieval knights who left an unforgettable legacy. First, Rodrigo de Vivar. Rodrigo de Vivar, better known as El Cid, is a name that echoes through Spanish history. Born around 1043 in the Kingdom of Castile, he became a legendary knight during the Reconquista, earning the title Master of the Battlefield for his incredible military skills. After falling out of favor with King Alfonso VI, El Cid joined the Moors and earned the name El Cid, meaning the Lord in Arabic. He later returned to Alfonso's army, but was exiled again. El Cid's story isn't just one of warfare, it's also a tragic love story with his wife, Jimena, the niece of King Alfonso. His legacy has inspired countless stories, including Pierre Corneille's famous play, Le Cid. But the most chilling part of his legend came after his death in 1099. His enemies were struck with terror when his body was strapped to a horse and sent into battle. As if he were still alive, his motionless corpse, wielding his legendary sword, Tizona, struck fear into their hearts. Believing El Cid had returned from the dead to lead his army, they fled in panic. Even in death, El Cid's presence commanded victory, solidifying his status as an immortal warrior. Second, Godfrey of Bouillon. The first crusader, Godfrey of Bouillon, is remembered as the ultimate crusader, fearless, pious, and relentless in battle. Born around 1058 into nobility, he wasn't destined for power, but fate intervened. His uncle, Duke Godfrey VI, trained him as a warrior and left him a vast duchy in modern-day Belgium. In 1095, when Pope Urban II called for a holy war, Godfrey didn't hesitate. Selling his lands, he led his knights on the perilous First Crusade to reclaim Jerusalem from the Seljuk Empire. After 3 brutal years, his army reached the city in June 1099. Against overwhelming odds, Godfrey became the first crusader to breach Jerusalem's walls, cutting down enemies in a display of unmatched skill. His victory made him the most powerful leader in the Holy Land, but when offered the title King of Jerusalem, he refused, declaring that no man should wear a crown in the city of God. Instead, he ruled as protector of the Holy Sepulchre, the resting place of Jesus. Just 1 year later, Godfrey mysteriously died, some say from poison, others from illness. His death only fueled his legend, and he remains one of the most revered knights in history, the embodiment of the Crusader spirit. 3. William Marshal. England's greatest medieval knight. William Marshal is known as England's greatest knight. Born in a lower nobility family, William became a great and loyal warrior who served 5 kings of England. William Marshal is one of the greatest heroes of the Middle Ages and in British history. Born around 1146, William Marshal began his training as a knight at the age of 12. He carried his career on as a knight-errant, as described in chivalric literature. He traveled from place to place in search of adventures or tournaments. Marshal soon became a famous knight, and chroniclers recounted his numerous victories, spreading the tale of the chivalrous medieval knight. After several years as a knight-errant, William served Henry II and the 4 following kings of England. In gratitude for his devoted service to the kingdom, the king arranged the knight's wedding with Isabel de Clare, one of the wealthiest heiresses, granting him lands and a large fortune. In 1215, Marshal helped King John make peace with rebellious barons, leading to the Magna Carta's establishment. The knight even endorsed the role of protector of young King Henry III and regent of the nation. William Marshal died aged 72, incredibly old for the Middle Ages. 4. William Wallace, the famous Scottish knight. You've probably heard the name of this great Scottish warrior, William Wallace. Born around 1270 in Scotland, little is known about Wallace's early life, but by the time he entered history, he was already an outlaw. His rebellion against England began in 1297, when he killed William Heselrigg, the English sheriff of Lanark, to avenge the murder of Marion Bradefute. believed to be his wife. This single act sparked a revolution. Wallace quickly gained allies, including Robert the Bruce, the future King of Scotland. In September 1297, he led his forces to one of Scotland's greatest victories, the Battle of Stirling Bridge. Though outnumbered, Wallace's brilliant tactics lured English troops onto a narrow bridge, where his men slaughtered them one by one. This victory made him a national hero, and he was declared Guardian of Scotland. But Wallace's fight for freedom came at a cost. In 1305, he was betrayed by John de Menteith, a fellow Scot. Captured and handed over to the English, Wallace was tried for treason, brutally tortured, and executed. His final words: freedom. Even in death, Wallace remained a symbol of Scottish resistance. His legacy inspired Robert the Bruce, who continued the fight and eventually secured Scotland's independence. Wallace's courage and sacrifice live on, not just in history, but in the very identity of Scotland itself. 5. Robert the Bruce, the knight who became King of Scotland. Another legendary Scottish knight, Robert the Bruce, wasn't just a warrior. He became the King of Scotland and led his nation to independence. Born into nobility, Robert was the grandson of the 5th Lord of Annandale, a man who once claimed Scotland's throne. In the 1290s, Scotland faced a succession crisis, and King Edward I of England was asked to mediate. But instead of choosing a ruler, Edward claimed Scotland as his own, sparking resistance. At first, Robert allied with Edward, but as tensions grew, he switched sides and fought for Scottish independence. His defining moment came in 1306, when he murdered his rival, John Comyn, in a bold and dangerous move. Shortly after, Robert declared himself King of Scotland. His early reign was filled with defeats, forcing him into hiding, but he never gave up. According to legend, while hiding in a cave, he watched a spider repeatedly struggle to spin its web. Inspired by its persistence, he vowed never to surrender. His perseverance paid off. In 1314, Robert led a vastly outnumbered Scottish army against the English at the Battle of Bannockburn. Against all odds, he won, securing Scotland's independence. By 1328, England finally recognized Scotland as a free kingdom, and Robert the Bruce had fulfilled his destiny. He remains one of Scotland's greatest heroes, a knight, a king, and a symbol of resilience. 6. Richard the Lionheart, Middle Ages warrior king. Richard the Lionheart is best known for his role in the legend of Robin Hood, though his real-life story is just as remarkable. Son of Henry II, Richard I ruled England from 1189 to 1199, but spent most of his reign on the battlefield rather than in his kingdom. His fearless nature and military brilliance earned him the nickname Lionheart, Richard Cœur de Lion. By the age of 16, he was already leading his own army, and he later became a key commander in the Third Crusade, where he famously clashed with Saladin, the founder of the Ayyubid dynasty. Despite being King of England, Richard spent much of his life in France, particularly in Aquitaine, where he likely learned to speak French. His rule was marked by his devotion to warfare, fighting for the glory of England and Christianity. In 1199, Richard was fatally wounded by a crossbow while besieging a castle in France. His remains were divided and buried in different locations. His body at Fontevraud Abbey, Anjou, his bowels in Châlus-Chabrol, and his heart in Rouen Cathedral, Normandy. This practice, known as delaceratio corporis, was common for knights and crusaders who died far from home. Richard's legendary courage and military achievements made him a hero in medieval literature. Even during his lifetime, troubadours sang of his bravery, and he is even believed to have written poetry himself. 7. Bertrand du Guesclin, the Eagle of Brittany. Bertrand du Guesclin was one of France's greatest knights, playing a key role in the 100 Years' War, a brutal conflict between England and France that lasted over a century. Born around 1320, Bertrand was the eldest son of a Breton nobleman, Robert II du Guesclin. Unlike the romanticized image of a handsome knight, Bertrand was described as physically unappealing, even called the ugliest child in the region by a 14th century troubadour. However, a fortune teller predicted a glorious future and Bertrand proved his worth through sheer courage and strength. His tough, brawler-like build made him an exceptional warrior. After being knighted by Alucard D, he adopted the motto, "Courage grants what beauty denies." Bertrand quickly made a name for himself, winning numerous tournaments before joining the 100 Years' War. He fought for Charles of Blois, the French crown's ally, against Jean de Montfort, who was loyal to England. His legendary battles in Brittany's Painpont Forest, also known as the mythical Arthurian forest, earned him the nickname the Black Dog of among the English. In 1370, King Charles V of France appointed Bertrand as Constable of France, the highest military rank, making him commander-in-chief of the French army. He led France to many victories before dying in 1380, leaving behind a legacy of fearless warfare and unwavering loyalty. 8. Joan of Arc, the warrior saint. The only woman among history's greatest knights, Joan of Arc is one of France's most legendary figures. Born around 1412 into a farming family, she claimed to hear divine voices, Saint Margaret, Saint Catherine, and Saint Michael to free France from English rule and support the Dauphin, Charles VII. Despite being a mere teenager, Joan convinced nobleman Robert de Baudricourt to help her meet Charles VII. She soon led the French army, securing a crucial victory at in 1429, earning the title the Maid of. Her success paved the way for Charles VII's coronation in Reims. However, in 1430, she was captured, handed to the English, and put on trial for heresy and cross-dressing. In a politically motivated verdict, she was burned at the stake in 1431 at just 19 years old. Centuries later, in 1920, the Catholic Church canonized her as a saint. Joan's courage, faith, and military genius made her a symbol of resilience. Her story, like those of other great knights, continues to inspire legends and history alike. These 8 knights weren't just warriors, they were legends who shaped history. From battlefield geniuses to fearless leaders, their names live on as symbols of bravery and honor. Which of these knights impressed you the most? Let us know in the comments.